running from my past, fighting for my future. Violet's purple eyes are both a blessing and a curse in a world where secrets can kill. Dive into the purple garden and discover a tale of courage, family, and the power of being different. My name is Violet, and my eyes are purple, not just a poetic flourish, but a real, shimmering hue that's haunted me since birth. Some call it a gift, others, a curse. Today, it felt like the latter. The forest behind our rickety old house was alive with danger, and my sister Lily, our Aunt Mary, and I were running for our lives. The hunters, mercenaries hired by a rival family whose name we didn't even dare whisper, were closing in, their heavy boots pounding the earth like war drums. "Push hard!" Aunt Mary wheezed, her voice cracking under the strain. Her graying hair whipped wildly as she stumbled over roots, her hands clawing at the air for balance. "Come on, go!" The air was sharp and cold, biting at my throat with every ragged breath. It smelled of wet moss, pine needles, and the faint metallic tang of fear. Overhead, the canopy of ancient oaks and maples twisted together, filtering the late afternoon sun into a dim, flickering haze. Branches snapped underfoot, loud as gunfire, and somewhere behind us, a crow cawed, a harsh, mocking sound that seemed to cheer the hunters on. Lily was ahead of me, her thin frame darting between trees, her blonde hair plastered to her sweat-soaked face. She was only 13, 2 years younger than me, but her legs moved with a desperate grace I couldn't match. "Violet, hurry!" she cried, her voice high and brittle, nearly lost in the wind. I couldn't look back. I didn't dare, but I could hear them. The rustle of their jackets, the low growl of their curses, the clink of weapons strapped to their belts. They were gaining, and my chest tightened with a primal, animal terror. My hand brushed the slingshot tucked into my coat pocket, a battered wooden thing I'd carved myself, its leather sling worn smooth from years of practice. It wasn't much, but it was all I had. "We can't keep this up," I shouted, skidding to a halt on a carpet of fallen leaves. My sneakers slid, kicking up dirt, and I whirled around, facing the direction of our pursuers. "I've got an idea." Lily spun back, her blue eyes wide with panic. "What are you doing?" "We have to. Just trust me," I snapped, dropping to one knee and scooping up a handful of smooth river stones scattered near a dried-up creek bed. My fingers trembled as I loaded one into the sling, the weight of it grounding me even as my heart raced. The first hunter burst through the undergrowth, a towering brute with a shaved head and a scar slicing across his cheek. His black jacket was patched with dirt, and his meaty hands gripped a machete that gleamed dully in the half-light. He saw us and grinned, a wolfish baring of teeth that made my stomach lurch. I didn't think. I just acted. Pulling the sling taut, I aimed and released. The stone shot through the air with a faint whistle, striking him square in the forehead. There was a wet crack, like a melon splitting, and he staggered back, blood blooming between his fingers as he clutched his face. "Goddamn!" he roared, his voice thick with pain and fury. The others, 3 more shadows emerging from the trees, faltered, their steps slowing as they registered their leader's fall. I fired again, then again, each stone finding its mark, a shoulder, a knee, the bridge of a nose. They ducked and swore, shielding themselves with raised arms, and for a fleeting moment, I felt invincible, a hunter in my own right. "Run!" I yelled, grabbing Lily's wrist and dragging her forward. Aunt Mary was already moving, her breath coming in shallow sobs. We broke through the tree line, the forest giving way to the muddy outskirts of a small town. The hunters' shouts faded behind us, swallowed by the clamor of barking dogs and distant traffic. They wouldn't follow us here, not with the risk of being seen. We collapsed against a sagging wooden fence, gasping, our clothes torn and streaked with dirt, but alive. The town of Ashwood was a grey smear of brick buildings and cracked sidewalks, its streets alive with the hum of midday life. We'd barely caught our breath when we stumbled into Lieutenant Johnson. He stood near the town square, a clipboard in hand, barking orders at a cluster of scruffy kids like a drill sergeant. He was tall and lean, with a buzz cut and a voice that cut through the noise like a blade. His uniform, dark green, emblazoned with the Yuan family crest, marked him as someone important. The Yuan family. Everyone knew of them. Old money, older secrets, and an estate called the Purple Garden that loomed in whispers and rumors. They were recruiters, always on the hunt for fresh blood to bolster their private security force. And today, it seemed, they'd found us. Hello. Thanks for watching and being part of this journey. If you enjoy story like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support means the world. Now let's dive into the story. You three look like you've seen trouble, Johnson said, his grey eyes flicking over us. He lingered on me, noting the slingshot still dangling from my hand. What's your story? I hesitated, glancing at Aunt Mary. Her face was drawn, her hands trembling as she smoothed Lily's hair. Hunters, I said finally, my voice hoarse. They chased us from our home. I stopped them. With that, he nodded at the slingshot, one eyebrow arching. Show me. Before I could protest, he pointed to a rusted tin can perched on a nearby crate, some 20 yards off. The crowd of kids around us quieted, their curious stares prickling my skin. I swallowed, feeling the weight of their eyes, and loaded a stone. The sling snapped back, and the can flew off the crate with a sharp clang, spinning into the dirt. Johnson let out a low whistle. Guts and skill. We could use that. He turned to Lily and Aunt Mary. You two sticking with her? Lily nodded fiercely, her jaw set. She's my sister. Where she goes, I go. Aunt Mary wrung her hands, her voice soft. I just want them safe. If you can promise that. Johnson's lips twitched, not quite a smile. Safety's earned, not given. But they'll have a chance with us. He scribbled something on his clipboard and waved us forward. You're in. Welcome to the Yuan family. As we joined the line of recruits, 8 other kids, all rough-edged and wary, I felt a knot of unease twist in my gut. This wasn't just a way out. It was a way in, to something vast and unknowable. I clutched my slingshot tighter, wondering what I'd just signed us up for. The journey to the Purple Garden took hours, the truck rattling over winding roads until the world outside blurred into a tapestry of green and gold. When we finally arrived, I could hardly believe my eyes. The estate was a kingdom unto itself, sprawling across rolling hills with hundreds of courtyards linked by cobblestone paths. Willow trees, their branches drooping like curtains, framed the grounds, planted, I'd later learn, by a Madame C centuries ago. The air was heavy with the scent of jasmine and wet stone, and the faint drone of cicadas pulsed like a heartbeat. We were herded through a towering gate, its ironwork twisted into intricate vines, and into a grand hall that stole my breath. The floors were polished marble, veined with streaks of purple and gold, reflecting the light of chandeliers that hung like constellations. At the far end stood Madame Elizabeth, a woman carved from ice and iron. Her silver hair was pinned tight, her black dress severe, and her eyes, cold and piercing, swept over us like a judge's gavel. So, these are the new strays, she said, her voice a blade wrapped in silk. Her gaze landed on me, and her lips thinned. A girl with purple eyes. They say that's a mark of misfortune. I felt heat rise to my cheeks, but before I could speak, Lily stepped forward, her small hands balled into fists. She's no curse, madam. She's brave. She saved us. Madame Elizabeth's eyes narrowed, a flicker of disdain crossing her face. Insolence, she snapped, raising a hand. Guards, take her. Stop. The voice was soft but firm, cutting through the room like a breeze. Young Master Edward rolled forward in his wheelchair, his movements slow but deliberate. He was maybe 20, with dark brown hair and eyes that held a quiet sadness. His legs were covered by a blanket, useless since birth, but his presence filled the space more than Madame Elizabeth's ever could. They're just kids, he said, his tone gentle but unyielding. Give them a chance. Madame Elizabeth's jaw tightened, her fingers curling into her palms. Very well, Edward, she said, her voice tight. But they'd best prove their worth. Loyalty is everything here. One mistake, and they're gone. I nodded, my pulse still racing, and stole a glance at Edward. He met my eyes briefly, offering a faint, reassuring smile before looking away. Something about him, his kindness, his quiet strength, made me think he saw me, really saw me, beyond the purple in my eyes. Training began at dawn. the sky still streaked with pink when Coach Dai and Coach Lian marched us onto the training grounds. Dai was a bear of a man, his voice a growl, while Lian was wiry and sharp-tongued, her eyes missing nothing. They drilled us relentlessly. Hand-to-hand combat, knife-throwing, strategy games that left my head spinning. My slingshot earned me praise during target practice, each stone hitting its mark with a satisfying thunk, while Lily's knack for puzzles and quick thinking shone in the mental exercises. But the Purple Garden wasn't just sweat and bruises, it was a web of secrets and simmering rivalries. The eldest son, Alexander, had returned after years as a hostage in a distant city, a tall, brooding figure with scars crisscrossing his hands. His arrival sent ripples through the estate, unsettling Madame Elizabeth and her loyal lapdog, Supervisor Lou, a pinched-faced man who sneered at us recruits like we were dirt on his boots. They'd ruled in Alexander's absence, and now their power was slipping. One evening, as I sat on my cot rubbing liniment into my aching shoulders, Lily slipped in beside me, her face pale in the lantern light. "I heard something today," she whispered, glancing at the door. "The coming-of-age ceremony, it's not just a test. It's life or death. People don't always come back." My stomach dropped, the air suddenly too thick to breathe. "What do you mean?" "They make you prove your loyalty," she said, her voice trembling. "In ways you can't imagine. It's how they weed out the weak." I pulled her close, her head resting against my shoulder. "We're not weak," I said, forcing confidence into my words. "We've made it this far. We'll make it through that, too." But as I lay awake that night, the shadows dancing on the ceiling, I couldn't shake the fear gnawing at me. What had we gotten ourselves into? The ceremony came too soon, dawn breaking over the estate in a wash of blood-red light. They took us to a hidden corner of the Purple Garden, a labyrinth of stone walls, its corridors damp and echoing with the drip of unseen water. The air was cool and musty, smelling of earth and ancient stone, and the weight of it pressed down on us like a living thing. Coach Dai stood before us, his arms crossed. "3 trials," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Endurance, skill, loyalty. Survive them, and you're one of us. Fail, and—" He didn't finish, but the silence said enough. The first trial was a gauntlet of traps, swinging blades that hissed through the air, pits hidden beneath false floors, walls of flame that roared to life as we approached. I used my slingshot to trigger mechanisms from a distance, stones ricocheting off levers and springs with sharp pings. Lily's eyes darted over the chaos, spotting patterns in the madness, shouting directions that kept us moving. Left. Duck. Jump now. We stumbled through, singed and breathless, but whole. The second trial was combat. They stripped us of weapons and paired us off, forcing us to fight hand-to-hand in a dirt-packed ring. My opponent was a boy named Sam, broad-shouldered and quick, his fists like hammers. I dodged and weaved, my training with Coach Lian kicking in, strike fast, aim for weak points. My knuckles grazed his jaw, his ribs, until he faltered, and I pinned him, my knee on his chest. "Sorry," I muttered, hating every second of it. The final trial was the hardest. They lined us up in a dim chamber, a single lantern casting long, wavering shadows. Coach Lian paced before us, her voice cold. "One of you can secure your place now. Point to someone, anyone, and they're out. Their spot becomes yours. Speak, or we decide who fails." The room went still, the air thick with unspoken betrayal. I glanced at Lily, her face white, her hands clenched. Sam shifted beside me, his breath uneven. No one spoke. Seconds stretched into eternity, and I felt sweat bead on my forehead, my heart hammering against my ribs. Finally, Lian nodded. "Good. Loyalty isn't just words. You've passed." We emerged from the labyrinth battered, cuts on our arms, bruises blooming across our skin, but alive. Standing there, the sun warm on my face, I realized something. My purple eyes weren't a curse. They'd guided me, sharpened my aim, kept me steady. I'd earned this. Now, I'm a soldier of the Purple Garden, my slingshot traded for a proper weapon, though I keep it close, a reminder of who I am. Lily's beside me, her mind as sharp as ever, and we're part of something bigger, something dangerous. Alexander's return has fractured the estate, Madam Elizabeth's grip weakening as whispers of rebellion grow. We recruits are caught in the middle, our loyalty tested daily. But I'm not afraid. Not anymore. Whatever comes, betrayal, battle, or worse, I'll face it with my sister at my side and the strength I've forged in these walls. The Purple Garden is my home now, and I'll fight to keep it.